This is crazy. Ubisoft's latest and greatest AAA game has been delayed. Now, in case you've been living under a rock, Assassin's Creed Shadows is set to be Ubisoft's next AAA game. It's supposed to right the ship of Assassin's Creed and bring it to a setting that fans have wanted forever, Japan. And now it's been delayed. It was set to release in October, honestly just a few short weeks away, and now it's being delayed all the way into February of 2025. Not to many, this may come as a surprise. I mean, all things considered, it's pretty rare for a developer to delay their game this close to release. On top of that, Assassin's Creed has never officially been delayed, ever. So all the signs pointed it to being released in October, and now it's been delayed. But if you've been following this game for a while, you kind of knew that all the signs were pointing to this game being delayed. Today, we're going to talk about Assassin's Creed Shadows, what it brings to the table, if you really even should be hyped for it, and why this may be Ubisoft's last chance with gamers. But before we begin, if you like this type of content, make sure to hit the like button and consider subscribing to see more content like this. Alright, let's jump in. So, like I mentioned earlier, this game is set in Japan, and this is a setting that fans have been wanting for a while. And on top of that, there's been a lot more features added that honestly have not been in Assassin's Creed before. One of the main key features that has been talked about a lot is the new seasons feature. So for the first time ever in an Assassin's Creed, you're going to have all 4 seasons present in the game and have the game basically dynamically change in between them. Now, we don't know if this is tied to the story or if it just dynamically changes based on how long you've been in the game, but we do know that spring, summer, autumn, and winter are all present in the game. And they all feature different gameplay systems, basically. For example, say there's like a river running through a enemy outpost in the summer, which allows you to maybe swim in it and kind of stealthily enter the outpost that way. But in winter, that river freezes over, so now you no longer have that access point and that entry point to get in. This is something that's really cool and hasn't been done in an Assassin's Creed game before. In fact, this is something that I haven't seen in a game ever. The only thing that really comes close to it is Forza Horizon games. They also kind of have a seasons feature like this, where the different seasons like affect the driving and affect, which races are open, which was a really cool feature, and it was a standout feature in the new Forza Horizon games. So I think it's really cool that they're bringing that over into more of an open world setting with an Assassin's Creed game. And the fact that it is something that we've never seen before should get fans hyped. Now, I don't know if this is going to be something that's going to be heavily emphasized in the gameplay, but I do know that it's really cool, and I hope they do emphasize it because it's something that we really haven't seen before. On top of that, something new that they're also adding that has only been done in Assassin's Creed Syndicate prior to this is having 2 playable characters like simultaneously. Like in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, when you had Jacob and Evie and they were siblings, this one you have Yasuke, which is a real-life samurai that was actually present during this time, and Naoe. And kind of what they've done here is change the gameplay based on who you're playing as. One thing that they've talked about a lot is that Yasuke doesn't have the same agility that Naoe does. He's more of a brute that's going to come in and just have open combat and not really care about stealth and have that strength that way. Whereas Naoe is more akin to a typical assassin where she's more stealthy, stays to the rooftops, does like silent kills, things like that. And again, if this is pulled off correctly, this is something that's really cool. Now, in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, you had 2 playable characters that had something to do with the story, but they weren't different gameplay-wise. They were supposed to be, they were marketed as having different gameplay styles, but there really truly wasn't that much of a difference. Jacob could parkour just as well as Evie, and Evie could have great open combat just like Jacob. So there was really no incentive to use one over the other, and it was really just who you liked playing as the most. But in this game, there will be gameplay, altering things that happen if you choose one character over the other. At least that's what's supposed to happen. Again, we haven't seen enough of the game to know if that's actually the case. I hope that's what happens. I mean, it's been marketed that way, and I hope that it is like that. However, we don't know for sure. And this is a common theme you're going to hear in the video. You're going to hear that, there's these cool gameplay ideas that they're bringing into the game, but we haven't seen gameplay of it. We haven't seen, any YouTubers or press go out and try this stuff and actually confirm or deny how much of a difference it really makes. And that's something that you're going to hear throughout this video. So another thing that we know is that the size of the world is pretty similar to a game like Assassin's Creed Origins. So it's not on the massive end like Odyssey and Valhalla, but it isn't like the older games or like Mirage just last year, where it's more of a smaller scale and just a city. Again, this is kind of blending the two. And to be honest, I love that. Origins to me was the perfect size for an Assassin's Creed game that was refreshing. You had the massive cities in Alexandria, but you also got to kind of appreciate the world around those cities. And Egypt was a gorgeous place to, experience that in. And I think Japan is just as gorgeous. I don't know if this game would be doing Japan service if it was just set in like a Tokyo or an Osaka or something like that. I like the fact that they're using the surroundings and kind of that, countryside to kind of experience Japan that way. And I love that for sure. This is something that I really wanted to see. But other than that, we don't know much else about the gameplay. And that's the problem. The things that we do know are that, okay, it's similar size to Origins, so it's a pretty big world. We know that there's 2 playable characters, similar to Syndicate. We know that there's seasons, which is something new that they haven't done before. And we know that the game is set in Japan. That's really it. We've barely seen any gameplay. There's been no YouTubers who have gone out and played the game and have been able to share their thoughts. There's none of that here. We've gotten maybe 30 to 40 minutes of total gameplay posted, and that stuff is heavily edited and is a lot of times just a vertical slice of a game that is fully polished. So we don't know what the rest of the game is going to look like, and that's kind of an issue. So another thing is that they did finally end up setting press releases for the game to have press basically come play the game and talk about it like just before release. But a story broke that they canceled those press releases. Why is that? Now, if you contrast this to a game that Ubisoft just released in Star Wars Outlaws, you can see that there's definitely differences. With Star Wars Outlaws, multiple YouTubers got multiple chances to play that game and talk about it. That is something that hasn't happened with Shadows yet, and that's an issue. You kind of knew going into Outlaws what you were expecting because of the fact that YouTubers got to play it and, got to share their thoughts on it. But that hasn't happened with Shadows. We don't know anything. On top of that, with Outlaws, they released gameplay from various outlets like IGN. Here, that hasn't been done, and we're so close to release. Now, Ubisoft projected an image that the game was ready to go for that October release date, but internally, something must have been going on, otherwise the game never would have gotten delayed. Now, like I said, many people think that this game seemed like it was ready to go. Why did it get delayed? But if you look at the evidence like this, it's overwhelmingly suggesting that the game wasn't polished or didn't have the depth that it needed to have for an October release date. The lack of gameplay posted on YouTube, the lack of YouTubers going to go play the game and talking about it, the canceling of the press releases, all those are issues for a game that's not ready to go. In Outlaws case, for example, none of that happened because they knew what the game was, they knew what they had done, and it was ready to go. For Shadows, that hasn't happened. Look, all this to say, this is Ubisoft's last chance to make it right with gamers. If you go back into the 2010s, Ubisoft had a very solid track record. Look, there were some duds here and there, like Assassin's Creed Unity, for example. That game was very underbaked when they released it, but it wasn't the fact that the game was bad, it was the fact that the game was unpolished. Now, if you go and play the game after they fixed all the bugs and done all the stuff, many people regard it as one of the best Assassin's Creeds. I mean, Paris in that game is insanely immersive, and it is truly that Assassin's Creed that everyone had been wanting from that next generation. On top of that, you have games like Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4. Those games kind of set the precedent of what a first person shooter in an open world might look like. On top of that, Assassin's Creed Black Flag. That is considered one of the greatest games that Ubisoft has released, and it's been, highly regarded ever since. All this to say that in the 2010s, Ubisoft had a solid track record. They had some issues with some graphical downgrades like in Watch Dogs or some unpolished stuff like in Unity, but generally that consumer trust with them was there, and that's a good thing to have. I won't go and say that Ubisoft releases masterpiece after masterpiece like Rockstar might, but all of the games they did release in the 2010s were definitely akin to that 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 range. Games that are worth your time and worth playing. Some of those games were maybe 9 out of 10s as well, like if you talk about Far Cry 3 or AC Black Flag. But almost all of their games did kind of fall into that 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, sometimes 9 out of 10 range. Now, let's talk about 2020s. We're 4 years into the decade, and I don't think there's a single game that Ubisoft can confidently say has been a 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. Right now, they're kind of operating in that 6 out of 10 range. Okay, they started the decade off with a bang with The Division 2. A lot of people love The Division 2, and I personally also really like it. And I do think it's in that 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 range. But let's talk about the games after. In 2021, they released Far Cry 6. Many people regard that as one of the worst Far Cries in the past decade. When you have games like Far Cry 3, Far Cry 4, Far Cry Primal, Far Cry 5, Far Cry 6 is a step back, and many people know that. And the reason why people say it's a step back is because the world was overly large. There was too much bloat. They were taking that formula of those outposts and all that and just expanding it just for the sake of expanding it without really working on, making it more enticing. On top of that, you have a game like AC Valhalla that, while it sold really well, is considered one of the worst Assassin's Creed games. It's like a 150-hour adventure, and it's all bloat. People don't like that, and people didn't want that. Okay, all right, they heard the issues, and they went back and made AC Mirage. They were supposed to be a fall right back into that classic Assassin's Creed formula with large cities, more, those black box missions where you get a target and you're like, all right, go assassinate them. But there was an issue there too. People struggled with that game. People didn't like that game. It was clearly Valhalla and Valhalla systems just altered slightly to make it fit into that world. And again, that's an issue. Fast forward to their latest game I just talked about, Star Wars Outlaws. This may be one of Ubisoft's biggest blunders yet. Now, I personally don't hate the game. I've been playing through it, and I think it's pretty good. I'm a Star Wars fan. I think it's very immersive. But again, I have to admit, the gameplay is pretty bland. There's not a lot to do. The shooting feels a little off. The world itself is gorgeous, but there's not a lot of interactivity. It feels alive, but it feels like you're visiting it. It's like you're going to a museum and you're looking at all these things and you're feeling immersed, but you're not really there. And that's kind of an issue. And let's talk about the dumpster fire that is Skull and Bones. That tanked potentially any goodwill that they had left. And the CEO's comments about quadruple A games and how the $70 price tag is something that should be expected because their games are so good just made it worse. Right now, Ubisoft's consumer trust is at an all-time low. And Assassin's Creed Shadows is one of the last big games they have left to really rectify that. If Assassin's Creed Shadows is bad, I don't think Ubisoft recovers. Their sales are down. Investor trust is down. Their stock price is down, even after releasing a Star Wars game. All those signs point to a failing company, and that's an issue. So I'm glad they delayed Assassin's Creed Shadows. I think the game needs to be near perfect. They don't have the luxury of it being a 7 out of 10 game anymore. That's not going to cut it with consumers. They need it to be an 8 out of 10. They need it to be a 9 out of 10. And I think the ambition is there for it. The seasons, the dual protagonists, all those things show that they have that ambition and that drive to want to make that game. But they also need to focus on the polish. They need to focus on the depth of the game. If that also isn't there, then you can forget it. The game is going to go down in a long list of 6 out of 10s that Ubisoft has released. So Again, I'm glad that they delayed it. I hope that it's great. Because I personally love Assassin's Creed and I want to enjoy an Assassin's Creed game in Japan. That's something that I've really always wanted. So hopefully they pull it out. Hopefully it's good. And because you want to see these companies succeed. I know Ubisoft hasn't had the greatest track record and they've said a lot of anti-consumer things, but you want to see these companies succeed because that's how they bring out great games. And that's how people like me and you enjoy games. We enjoy games from these companies because they care about them and because they want them to be great, not because they want money out of us. So if that's the way Ubisoft is going, if that's the way they want it to be with Assassin's Creed Shadow, they want it to be about the people, they want it to be about the gameplay, and the money is secondary. I hope that's the case, and I hope that they can fix it. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about Assassin's Creed Shadows. Let me know if you're going to play it. Let me know if you're glad about the delay. But yeah, just talk to me in the comments. Anyway, guys, it's been CGG. I'm out.